Imagine standing on the fog-shrouded deck of a creaking periauger in 1810, the Hudson River churning like a beast beneath you as a scrawny 16-year-old kid with calloused hands and fire in his eyes stares down the glittering skyline of Manhattan. This isn't some Hollywood pirate tale, it's Cornelius Vanderbilt, the boy from a dirt-poor Staten Island farm, betting everything on a single boat named Swiftsure. He borrowed $100 from his own mother, money she'd hidden in a pickle barrel, promising to repay it by ferrying passengers and freight across the harbor. Fail, and he'd be back scrubbing his father's leaky ferry. A life of scraping by in the shadow of America's budding empire. But succeed? Oh, he succeeded. In months, that loan was paid, and Vanderbilt was hooked on the thrill of outmaneuvering bigger boats, faster routes, and smug captains who called him boy. By dawn's first light, he'd be racing rivals through narrow channels, dodging ice floes and sandbars, his heart pounding with the raw fury of someone who tasted poverty and vowed never to swallow it again. What drove this kid to become the Commodore? The man who'd crush empires and build a fortune worth $200 billion in today's dollars. Stick with me, because this isn't just a story of boats and tracks, it's the beating pulse of America's wild, unforgiving rise, where one man's grit turned ferries into fortresses and rails into rivers of gold. Picture young Cornelius in 1794, born into a ramshackle world on Staten Island, the youngest of 9 in a Dutch-American clan scraping by on potatoes and ferry fares. His father, old Cornelius Vanderbilt, was a sturdy farmer who doubled as a hauler, rowing produce across the harbor in a flat-bottomed boat that leaked like a sieve. School? Vanderbilt quit at 11, his formal education ending with basic arithmetic scratched on a slate. But what he lacked in books he made up in the salt-stung air of the docks, learning the harbor's moods. The way tides could swallow a careless sailor, or how a sharp eye could spot a shortcut through the narrows that shaved hours off a run. By 12, he was commanding his dad's periauger, hollering orders to deckhands twice his age, his voice cutting through the wind like a knife. It was brutal work, hauling gravel, dodging British privateers during whispers of war, and watching his mother, Phoebe, mend nets by candlelight, her hands raw from endless labor. Yet in those endless days, a spark ignited. Vanderbilt saw the harbor not as a drudgery, but as a battlefield, a place where speed and cunning could turn a penny into a pound. I was determined to be rich, he'd later growl, his gravelly Staten Island accent thick with defiance. And I knew it wouldn't come from plowing fields. At 16, that determination exploded. With his mother's reluctant $100 earned from selling prize vegetables from her garden, Vanderbilt bought the Swiftsure, a 2-masted sailor barely fit for the bay. He painted her hull gleaming white, rigged her sails taut, and launched into the cutthroat ferry trade between Staten Island and Manhattan. Passengers grumbled at first, a rough kid in patched trousers charging half the going rate, but word spread. Vanderbilt ran his boat like a predator, lighter loads for speed, no-frills service to undercut fares, and a willingness to brave storms that sent others to port. Within a year, he owned 2 boats, then 3, his crews swelling with loyal sailors who swore by the Commodore's unyielding drive. War came in 1812, and with it, opportunity. The British blockade turned the harbor into a smuggling hive, and Vanderbilt, ever the opportunist, snagged a government contract to supply New York's forts with provisions. He dodged cannon fire, outran patrols, and turned a tidy profit that bought him his first schooner, the Charlotte. By 19, married to his cousin Sophia Johnson in a simple ceremony that belied their shared hunger for more. He was commanding vessels up the Hudson, his eyes already fixed on the horizon. Sophia, fierce and practical, ran an inn in New Brunswick to keep the home fires burning while he chased deals. Their first child, Phoebe, arriving amid the chaos of expanding lines. It was a partnership forged in fire, her steady hand balancing his reckless gambles. But Vanderbilt's real war began in 1817 when fate tossed him a lifeline disguised as a challenge. Thomas Gibbons, a wealthy New Jersey landowner fed up with the steamboat monopoly strangling the waterways, hired the 23-year-old Vanderbilt as captain and manager of his boat, the Bellona. The monopoly? A cozy deal granted by New York to Robert Fulton and Robert Livingston's heirs, locking out competitors with threats of arrest and sabotage. Gibbons, no stranger to rebellion, he once defied British troops, saw in Vanderbilt a kindred spirit, illiterate in letters but fluent in leverage. Vanderbilt piloted the Bellona up and down the Hudson, charging rock-bottom fares that bled the monopolists dry. When sheriffs seized the boat, he'd charm or bully his way free. When rivals rammed his hull, he'd rebuild tougher. The courts became his next arena. Gibbons sued, enlisting Daniel Webster and Vanderbilt's own gritty testimony, culminating in the landmark 1824 Supreme Court case Gibbons v. Ogden. Chief Justice John Marshall's ruling shattered the monopoly, declaring interstate commerce untouchable by states. Vanderbilt, standing in the gallery, felt the ground shift, not just for boats, but for America's future. "It was the greatest day of my life," he later confided, his eyes misting with rare emotion, "because it proved a poor boy could fight the kings and win." Emboldened, Vanderbilt struck out on his own in 1829, gobbling up routes like a wolf at a feast. He commandeered the New Jersey ferry from Gibbons' heirs, then pivoted to the Long Island Sound, where he tangled with Daniel Drew, a sly cattle drover turned steamboat operator. Drew, with his poker face and penchant for dirty tricks, flooded routes with cheap boats to starve Vanderbilt out. But the Commodore was relentless. He slashed fares to pennies, ran night-and-day schedules, and even slept on deck to keep crews moving. In 1831, he cornered Drew's stock, forced a buyout, and turned him into a secret partner for decades, a wary alliance born of mutual respect and lingering grudges. By the 1840s, Vanderbilt's fleet dominated the Sound, his boats gleaming icons of efficiency, carrying immigrants, merchants, and dreamers from New York to Providence. He acquired the Staten Island ferry outright, turning it into a clockwork empire, and eyed the Pacific with the hunger of a man who'd outgrown harbors. Then came 1849. The California gold rush. While fools panned rivers, Vanderbilt scented true wealth in transit. He founded the Accessory Transit Company, slashing travel time to the gold fields via a daring Nicaragua route steamers across oceans, stagecoaches over jungles, and mules through fever swamps. Profits poured in, but so did betrayal. His partner, Cornelius Garrison, tried a coup. Vanderbilt responded with fury, launching a rival line, undercutting fares to starvation levels, and retaking control amid gunfire and filibuster scandals. Nicaragua's jungles echoed with his name, hero to some, tyrant to others, as he funneled millions back east, his family swelling to 13 children, though tragedy struck early, claiming young George in infancy and testing Sophia's quiet strength. Yet even as steamships crowned him king of the seas, Vanderbilt sensed the tide turning. Rails were snaking across the land like iron veins, promising speed no boat could match. In the 1850s, he dipped toes into boards the Erie, the Harlem learning the game of stocks and proxies. His son William Henry, the steady one amid a brood of wildcards, urged the leap. "Father," William said one stormy night in their Manhattan brownstone, "ships are yesterday. Rails are tomorrow." Vanderbilt, ever the gambler, sold his fleet in 1864 for $30 million, a war chest to conquer the iron roads. He started small, cornering the New York and Harlem Railroad in 1863, ousting directors with bought votes and proving its worth by linking Manhattan to the upstate wilds. Then came the Hudson River Railroad, a vital artery he seized in '64, followed by the crown jewel, the New York Central in 1867. He paid premiums in cash and cunning, weaving lines from Albany to Buffalo, then west to Cleveland and beyond. By 1869, the Lake Shore and Michigan Southern fell, and in 1870, he forged them into the New York Central and Hudson River Railroad, a behemoth spanning 4,500 miles, hauling freight and fortunes at 60 miles an hour. Grand Central Depot rose in 1871, a steel and glass cathedral where tycoons like him plotted empires, and the Murray Hill Tunnel bored through Manhattan's bedrock, a testament to his unyielding will. But glory came laced with blood. The Erie War of 1868 was Vanderbilt's inferno, a stock battle royale against Jay Gould, James Fisk, and a resurrected Daniel Drew, now Erie's treasurer. Vanderbilt aimed to corner shares, pumping millions to drive prices skyward, but Gould and Fisk flooded the market with watered stock fake certificates backed by bribes to legislators. Judges pocketed envelopes. Printers churned phantom shares under dead of night. Vanderbilt thundered from his office, "Gentlemen, you have undertaken to cheat me. I won't suffer it." He sued, tying courts and knots, but the war drained $10 million and left scars. Yet in the ashes, he emerged stronger, his central lines devouring competitors, rates slashed to bones, forcing mergers or ruin. Workers curse at him as the robber baron, strikes flaring like dry grass, but Vanderbilt saw only the vision, a unified network binding east to west, fueling factories and farms, turning America from patchwork colonies into an industrial colossus. His hands, once gripping tillers, now signed deals that moved mountains or at least tunneled under them. Through it all, the man behind the myth wrestled demons. Sophia's death in 1868 hollowed him, her final days a blur of fevers and unspoken regrets. He remarried swiftly to Frank Armstrong Crawford, a distant cousin half his age, in a quiet Ontario ceremony that sparked whispers of scandal. Frank, with her gentle fire, coaxed philanthropy from his iron heart $1 million to found Vanderbilt University in 1873, the largest youth's gift ever, a beacon for Southern education amid Reconstruction's ruins. But family fractured him deepest. Of 13 children, only William proved worthy, inheriting the bulk upon Vanderbilt's death on January 4, 1877, at 82, his body worn by old age, but his mind sharp as a spike. The estate? $105 million, equivalent to $200 billion today, dwarfing modern titans when measured against the era's economy. He left 95% to William, scraps to daughters, and the wastrel son Cornelius Vanderbilt, igniting lawsuits laced with claims of spiritualist meddling. In his final rasp, Vanderbilt murmured, "Keep the money together," a plea that echoed his life's brutal math. Divide the fortune and it dissolves. Cornelius Vanderbilt didn't just build rails, he forged America's spine. His pivot from salty decks to steel tracks a saga of audacious bets that still echoes in every freight car rumbling cross-country. His legacy? A fortune that ballooned under William to $200 million before splintering into Gilded Age excess. But more enduringly, a lesson in unbridled will: crush or be crushed, innovate or fade. If tales like this, of dreamers who dared the impossible, ignite something in you, hit that subscribe button and join us as we chase the next chapter in wealth's wild history. Coming up, the fur-trapping visionary who turned beaver pelts into New York's skyline. John Jacob Astor, America's first billionaire and a masterclass in seizing the frontier's chaos. What opportunist moves would you make in his boots? Drop it in the comments, and we'll see you there.